Have you been riding bikes for a number of years? Are you tired of your back always hurting? Are you sick of being lumped into the sport bike crowd and having people think you're some sort of degenerate or something like that on your motorcycle? Listen, there's a better way. It's called the sport touring motorcycle. Today we're talking about what is going on with sport touring motorcycles, why they're blowing up lately and everyone is scrambling to make a new one, and just some other thoughts about sport touring bikes. So if you're a dad wearing white Reebok shoes and you're now furiously typing a comment down below about sport touring motorcycles, maybe you're writing a love letter to your own sport touring bike, which a lot of you end up doing, which is quite funny. While you're down there, please smash the subscribe button for me. I would love to reach 1 million subscribers before the end of the year. I think we're gonna be able to do it, and we'll be able to reveal the Turbo Hayabusa as a fun Christmas present for you guys. So let's get into today's video and let's talk about sport touring motorcycles. All right, guys, I've taken some notes here because I am not Rain Man. I cannot remember everything, and this is kind of just a fun, casual videos. It's weekends with Yam, and so I have all these things here on my phone. Let's start by maybe defining what a sport touring motorcycle is. If we take the two words, sport and touring, you can kind of think of them as naked bikes that have been dressed up to do long distances. This Turismo Veloce 800 Lusso behind me here, provided by the good folks over at Eurocycle, is a sport touring motorcycle. You can see it's got full fairings. It kind of looks like a sport bike up here at the front, but it's got really tall handlebars because it's comfortable, a really big windshield, and some luggage as well. Those are kind of the main tenets of what makes a sport touring motorcycle. They're different than something like a Goldwing or a Bagger or something like that because they are very much designed to be flicked from side to side and typically have evolved from some sort of naked motorcycle or a sport motorcycle. This bike here features the same frame and engine as a Brutale naked bike and as the F3 race bike. Obviously, the engine's been detuned a little bit. That's something that you'll often see on sport touring bikes. They have the same frames and engines from their naked counterparts, but just a little bit less power. So let's talk about what's happening in the current landscape as we go into 2022 and why it seems like every other week there's a new sport touring bike. So the current situation is that everyone and their mother is rushing out to make a sport touring motorcycle, specifically in the middle displacement category, the kind of 600 to 900-ish cc. You're seeing a big explosion of those bikes lately. And, you know, it's because 600cc bikes are slowly being phased out. I think naked bike sales are starting to trickle a little bit as well. And a lot of people are looking at this category because they've realized that what they actually want from adventure bikes, which has been something that has been blowing up in popularity lately, they can pretty much achieve with a cheaper, more simple sport touring motorcycle because not that many people are taking their BMW R1250 GSs, their, you know, all these crazy big adventure bikes. They're basically relegating them to travel duty. And for a lot of folks, they'd prefer to have a 17-inch front and rear as opposed to a 1917 or 1918 or 2117, whatever setup adventure bike have nowadays. They'd prefer to be on a sport touring motorcycle because it's just gonna make them feel a little bit more comfortable in the twisties. It handles a little more neutrally than a big front wheel tire on an adventure bike, and a lot of people are starting to look at these motorcycles. And the thing is, for a lot of people, I think they look at sport touring bikes and they say, God, it just looks so dweeby, you know? And I used to be one of those people. I still am. I don't see myself owning one of these bikes just because personally for me, I like my riding very segmented. I do track days, motocross, trail riding. I don't really have a need for a kind of do-it-all commuter travel bike like this, but for a lot of people, they actually do have a big need for one motorcycle they can accomplish many, many tasks with. So that's what I think the first thing that is happening here with sport touring bikes. These are motorcycles that can accomplish a variety of tasks throughout your life. You can go to the grocery store with this thing. You can do a big long distance tour on it. You can rip up on the weekends with your buddy with it. Buddies, if you have more than one friend. Well, if you're watching Amy Noob, maybe you have no friends, right? I'm so sorry to do that to you. But this is a flexible bike, you know, this is a motorcycle that you can do a lot of things with, as opposed to a super committed race replica or some fiery naked bike. This is a bike that is a little more friendly, a little easier to get along with, and a lot of riders won't admit it, but this is probably the bikes they should own. If you look at the use cases for what most people use their motorcycles for, a bike like this actually makes a lot more sense than some race replica. The motorcycling world is really funny, man, because if you make the corollary to cars, it's like if everybody wanted to own a Ferrari. It's like if everyone wanted to own some kit car that made like 500 horsepower and weighed nothing, and then people are like, but I actually just need a Camry because I have kids and I need to go grocery shopping, and they're like, no, you need to own a kit car with 500 horsepower because you're a real boy. It makes no sense when you actually take a step back and think about it. And it's weird that we did that for like 20 years, where people are like, no, you need a 600cc strung out race bike to bop around town with and be super uncomfortable all the time. I just think people are kind of over that. You know, people are definitely moving on past that style of riding, and for good reason. There's also plenty of economic factors at play here that most people can't afford to have a vehicle, a mode of transportation in their life that is just a toy, right? Some people want, you know, just that toy element of it, but most people would like something that they purchase that is considerably expensive, right, in the 5-figure range, to actually provide some utility or some value. I think a lot of guys probably make the case to their wives because the bike has luggage. Look, you know, it's not a fast bike, it's got luggage. You can, you know, I can actually run errands with it. I can do stuff with it. You know, these are motorcycles that you can make the case much easier as to why you need to own this versus an R1 or something like that. I think there's also a case to be made for these motorcycles existing for people who are not interested at all in off-road riding. I know the off-road boys are gonna get all sad now, but for a lot of people, they don't really care about going on the rugged trail and having some dick measuring competition online of how much sand they rode through or whatever the else it is that self-hating adventure riders do. For a lot of guys, they just want a bike to go travel with and see cool stuff, and they don't want to pretend like it's some off-road bike. There's a lot of people I've met who own sport touring bikes who have a bit of a disdain towards adventure riders and guys who buy like BMW 1250s and literally just park them at the mall, right? It's a bit goofy to do that, and it makes more sense to do something like this. There's also the thing about adventure bikes just getting more and more and more expensive. Adventure bikes now, like a used 10RA 700, because you can't buy one new at the dealership because they get snapped up like that, used ones are going for 12 grand, dude. That's a $10,000 motorcycle that's now 20% over its MSRP because the demand is so ridiculously out of control. You know, up until recently, a lot of people were buying these adventure bikes for travel touring, and now there's so many new good sport touring bikes and so many old good sport touring bikes that people are like, wait, I don't need to go drop 12 grand on a 10RA 700 and pretend like I'm Paul Torres when I really just want a comfortable bike. I can travel to the mountains for a weekend and come back home. You know, that's really what a lot of people are looking for. So in this category, man, nowadays, I'm just kind of spitballing bikes here. You've got the new Suzuki GSX S1000 GT. Everyone's saying that that's like a fantastic motorcycle. I haven't ridden one yet, would like to. The new Honda NT 1100, the new Nerdmobile du jour. The Tiger 660, which I think is going to be a great seller for Triumph, fantastic. The Versus 650 got an update. There's the new V100 Mandello. There's the new Multistrada V2 from Ducati. The Tracer 9 GT is a fantastic option here in the States too. One of my employees here, Nick, actually owns a Tracer 9 GT, loves the thing. I don't think it's the GT, it might just be a Tracer 9. And I bet you a Tracer 7 is going to show up here in the States not too often. But as I mentioned, if you go back in history and back in the catalog, you can find so many good motorcycles in the sport touring category from the last 20 years. Your V-Strom 650s, your V-Strom 1000s, your FZ6s, your FZ10s. or FZ1s rather, not the FZ10. That's a naked bike, but the FZ1 you could definitely make into a sport touring bike. These are motorcycles that are basically indestructible, have been cared for lovingly by dads wearing white Reebok shoes in their driveways, changing the oil every 3,000 miles. They're pristine, they're always in good condition. You can get them for like $3 grand. You know, for a lot of people, I don't think you need to run out and spend 15, 20 grand on a new sport touring bike. Just hit up Craigslist or your local marketplace and you can probably buy a great sport touring bike for like 5 grand tops. So that's a really good case to be made for the sport touring bike, the humble sport touring bike. So let's talk about what's good about these motorcycles. I think they make great bang for buck, man, especially the Japanese ones. As I said, you can get a motorcycle that's sporty, it's faster than most things on the road, it's comfortable to ride all day long. Like, you will not have a problem putting 500-600 miles on this thing in one day if you really wanted to. And you got useful luggage as well. They often share the same frames and engines from their more sporty, naked bike counterparts, so it's easier to maintain them and service them. And you can still rip up twisties with your buddies. It's got 17s on it. The gas tanks are usually a little bit bigger, so you got more range. You know, they make a really good option for most people for most of the type of riding that they do. But it's not all good. There's a couple bad things about sport touring bikes. They're usually heavier than the comparable naked or super sport versions of their own motorcycles. You know, I'm talking like 40, 50, sometimes 60 pounds heavier than their naked counterparts. Sport touring bikes are not super conducive for really aggressive riding if you're taking it out to a track. You know, if you're kind of edging up on that intermediate pace even. The ergonomics are just kind of weird for like track day riding or even really aggressive street riding and that spirited pace type of thing. It can be done. There's plenty of guys that rip up on sport touring bikes and have a ball, but for me personally, I like to be in the correct position for the type of riding that I'm doing. It's why I wouldn't want to be leaned over if I was on a trail and why I wouldn't want to be super upright if I was trying to do track days. It just doesn't really make sense. The last thing about them is there's no getting around it. They are kind of nerdy and ugly. You have to move past that a little bit. You have to kind of co-sign yourself to the fact that you're going to own a motorcycle that just a lot of people are not going to understand it. They're not going to get it, but you're going to get it. You're going to understand that it's a great motorcycle and that you really love to ride it, and it's a great choice for what you're doing with it. So if you're a well put together adult human being and you don't care very much what other people think, you should get a sport touring bike, but just know that it is a little dweeby, you know, you can't really get around it. Another thing to notice, if you live in a very dense urban environment, filtering and lane splitting would be a little bit more challenging with these wider bars and the luggage and stuff like that. You've got a little more to manage horizontally as you move the motorcycle through filtering lanes and traffic. But if you're just commuting to the office and you don't actually need all the luggage capabilities, you can just put on a little tank rig on the back of there, pop off the luggage, then it's just like a normal motorcycle. So yeah, man, sport touring bikes, adaptable, interesting, good, don't overlook them. They're still not for me because I'm not 40 years old. I am turning 30 next year, which is crazy, but you know, these bikes make a lot of sense for most street riders. Most street riders will be best served with something like this. So let me know down below what you think about sport touring bikes. I'm sure if you own one, you did not make it all the way to the end of this video and waited until you did to write your comment. You've already written your comment, and now I'm talking directly to you, Theodore. You've written the comment. Anyways, guys, please subscribe down below. We're very close to 1 million subscribers on this channel, which is an amazing thing. It's gonna be very, very cool when we reveal our Turbo Hayabusa. Whole video series is ready to go. Just waiting to hit launch on that one. So we'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Keep watching, yeah, me know.